Hello guys and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me Vulcan. Today I have for you Protosszocker versus Theoman222 in round 2 of the 4th Asia Pacific tournament. Today we are seeing Pointe du Hoc, and on Allied side 1 we have Protosszocker using his 2nd Infantry, and on Allied side 2 we have Theoman222 playing the 101st Airborne. Now this is an interesting matchup because we've seen it before, and Theoman222 will definitely have a heads up on how this plays out. He managed to defeat God's Emperor in round 1, which was exactly the same matchup, and therefore he's going to have a lot of information to use because of that, and the practice as well. Whereas Protosszocker coming into this matchup, probably not so familiar, maybe even never played it, so that kind of leaves him at a little bit of a disadvantage early on, because Allied versus Allied matchups and Axis versus Axis matchups are never really practiced outside of like this tournament, for example. So yeah, it's definitely something different these players have to deal with. Now, the other sort of thing we have to look at here is, of course, the income of the divisions. The 101st can definitely put a lot of pressure on with their infantry early on. And if Theoman can find some decent engagements, work around the M4DDs that the 2nd Infantry are going to be bringing in, then he might make a lot of ground early on. But moving into Phase B, that's when Protosszocker can start to step up his game and really start to overwhelm Theoman with his fire support and artillery. However, saying that, Theoman does love his use of artillery with the 101st. So let's have a look at some of the units going down. Might be a bit more telling of what's actually going to come out. So we've got Pathfinders and 50 cal for the top side. For the mid, it's going to be what looks like a couple units of Airborne rifles and the Airborne leader with the M22 there. Command M22 as well. These are Airborne engineers, and we have Command Infantry with the M22 behind. And on the bottom side, it's going to be the Pathfinders, 50 cal and 6 pounder there, or M1 gun. On the other side, we do see, I think it's just rifles, Ranger Assaults and Ranger Leader for the bottom side. For the mid, it's going to be 2 mortars. That's a Ranger 60mm mortar and what looks like a 120mm mortar. He's got Ranger Assaults there and also Ranger Support and also some standard rifles. For the main road through the centre, he's got Command Infantry, 2 units of rifles and his recon there. M4DD is going to follow up at the start. For the top side, it's just 1 unit of rifles. Now that 1 unit of rifles could definitely get exploited, so he's going to have to be a little bit careful about that. Make sure that he either brings in recon to the top side so that he can continue to have a skeleton force there, or just back it up and try and push through the top side of the map, which is often relatively uncontested. I don't know why not many people play through this top side of Pointe du Hoc, but yeah, it's definitely something that people can take advantage of in a lot of games. So let's see if we get any engagements early on. I'm not sure there will be. M22 is going to be taking a shot at one of the rifle squads and takes it out. Really nice kill there early on. Immediately gives Theoman an even larger infantry advantage in Phase A. The other thing we've got to look at is how Airborne Engineers deal with Ranger Assaults. In general, I would say that Airborne Engineers should defeat Ranger Assaults due to having more men in the squads, but you can never be sure. A few shots exchanged here and there. We saw rifles open up onto the Pathfinders. This M4, has it been revealed to Theoman? I would assume it has, yes. So now what Theoman is going to be looking to do is either play around that or maybe try and flank it. In my personal opinion, I think I'd like to see the M22s maybe just move away from the M4 and try and play somewhere else and put aggression on this bottom side, or maybe on the very top side here. With these Pathfinders probably slowly but surely moving on, especially with the 50 cal support, they should actually be able to take care of this rifles squad. But territory is even. No one gained any ground at the start here. 50-50. 12 points for Protosszocker, but that's all it was. Now we just kind of have a standoff where both players are buying up their options. There is a lot of mortars here on the side of Protosszocker. That's actually an 81mm mortar at the start rather than the 120mm. And that 60mm mortar still there. We have an AT gun sort of coming into the mid and a new Ranger 60mm mortar coming into the top. 50 cal is going to start pinning down the Ranger assaults on the bottom a little bit, but Protosszocker is going to be using the trees as cover here, and rightly so, rather than running through in the tree line, run through behind the tree line. That's a very smart thing to do. So Protosszocker finding himself a brief +1 once again, but Theoman coming in hot with some more airborne rifles here, and they are really running into the lion's den right in front of this M4DD. I'm not sure there's a single building that can't be fired at by that M4DD. Really, really well placed, this M4. Going to provide ample fire support onto that squad and make it really difficult for Theoman to stay in there without the risk of being surrendered, especially considering Winters here needs to stay close in order for that to not happen. And wow, those airborne rifles being caught in the open, they're going to take a lot of damage. So just a focused engagement in the centre at the moment. The Ranger assaults have moved up. If they house hop forwards, they might be able to get some flames onto the backside of those airborne rifles, but we'll have to wait and see. Currently they've just moved out into the open rather than into the building. Not quite sure what's going on there. Yeah, looks like they didn't actually enter the building in the end. M1 Howitzer is going to be trying to counter battery the 60mm mortar, but I think I'd prefer to see that used for smoke right now, as it will allow his infantry to be a lot more flexible. And wow, those Ranger supports really doing a lot of damage to the airborne engineers here as they start to fall back. Took 5 men out of that squad in no time at all. However, the M22 going to be taking 3 men back. We do see these Ranger assaults taking quite a lot of damage as well. They've been caught out by the 30 cal of the airborne rifles. On this top side, 60mm mortar is going to be assisting those rifles and taking care of that 50 cal. However, with the arrival of new airborne rifles, that's going to be able to help pin these rifles in the tree line. Maybe force a surrender there, which would be really good news for Theoman, as it would give him the +1 early on, and a more solidified +1 than we've seen so far. Airborne rifles still trying to make some ground here. I'm not quite sure what's going on with this M4DD. It's in a bit of an awkward situation on the edge of that tree line. The M22 is going to sneak up. Will he get the kill? Engine destroyed. Okay, not quite there, but that M4 is not going anywhere. Can he get the second shot or even the third shot on target? Like when the M4 starts firing back, that's when it gets scary. But this M22, can it get the job done? He's managed to pin the M4, and that's, I guess, all he needed to do. Now he's got all the time in the world to find the kill. And there we have it. M4DD goes down. Really, really nice job there by Theoman. On this bottom side, the Ranger assaults, they're going to be pinned by the airborne rifles, spotted as they tried to cross between the two tree lines. They don't get any cover from that tree. So I think I would have preferred Protosszocker to just manually move them to the bottom here, but maybe was preoccupied with what happened in the mid there, losing his M4DD. Rifles on the top did get surrendered to the Pathfinder and airborne rifles, but that was a really, really opportunistic play out of Theoman, finding the M4, showing its side armor, used the hidden M22 to get the first shot in, and he was lucky it landed and did that engine destroy, because it left that M4 in a terrible position, showing side armor, allowing the M22 to penetrate, when if it was showing front armor, the M22 really would have struggled. So another M1 howitzer arriving on the top side. Looks like both are trying to counter battery the 60mm mortar, but I actually really like this choice of the CGMC here from Protosszocker to sort of stop infantry from continuing across in the open on that top side. The CGMC can be really, really useful with the 2nd Infantry to just sort of assist your aircraft, which I think we'll see Protosszocker make some use of, especially the Thunderbolt bombers with the 25 HE power bombs. Those things can be very deadly indeed. Now, of course, he is playing against an airborne division, so plenty of Mustangs on the side of Theoman, but if he already has the AA in and ready to support his air plays, then that will work out in his favour. These rifles have been pinned by the airborne rifles at close range. Ranger leader, though, stopping those from surrendering for now. Ranger mortar is going to get involved in that engagement and will pin down the airborne rifles in reply. We have a Bofors arriving on this bottom side for Theoman. Maybe he's going to try and make a play with some air force on this bottom side. I think it's unlikely that he's going to be using it as direct fire support. So the only reason to bring an AA, if your opponent hasn't really already used it, like used air force, is maybe just to support your own. And so maybe we'll see that come in a little bit later on. M1 gun here does get a weapon jam onto the M22. That's a nice hit. We can see an AT gun coming in from Theoman. That's not going to get into position, surely. Oh, wow. That CGMC is really badly placed. It doesn't have line of sight because it was kind of in the ditch there slightly. So it couldn't fire at this M1 gun unless it's like a hill here that I can't see. It's really tough to tell sometimes with Pointe du Hoc, especially on that top side. There's like bumps and in the terrain like this that really catch people out for line of sight. So the M3 gun has fired away. I think it got an internal fragment there onto the CGMC. Oh, and it gets the armor penetrated crew hit. Very nice indeed. Brilliant, brilliant shot there from Theoman. So he's starting to chip away at the important units of Protosszocker, taking out the M4DD, taking out that CGMC on the top side. That's some very expensive units. This Ranger mortar, though, somehow being allowed to hit his M1 howitzer. That's insane. This is 900 meter range. The M1 howitzer has 2000 meter range. That should never be allowed to happen. And Theoman definitely going to try and do something about it with his pathfinders here, but he's not going to be in range, so that's going to be an engagement that doesn't really work out unless he can find that, but with the rifles covering, I'm not sure he will. Not saying that, looks like Protosszocker might let him. Yep, Pathfinder's getting very close now to that Ranger mortar. Once they jump into that tree line, that Ranger mortar could go down very quickly. They're running for their life. No, they've managed to get out of the 100 meter range. Now they're just going to try and hide in the tree line themselves. Wow. 81mm mortar is going to be coming in with the pinning shots onto the Pathfinder there. That was a pretty much direct hit. Very nice indeed. Right, on this top side, rifles and airborne rifles engaging. M1 howitzer, I think, is going to try and take out the 60mm mortar up there. Pathfinder does get pinned. The mortar 60mm, though, is not going to be surrendering the Pathfinders anytime soon, with the Bofors getting involved and actually killing off the 60mm mortar. So I think Protosszocker got a bit ahead of himself there. He should have been happy that he saved the 60mm mortar. Going for the surrender was maybe a bit over ambitious, and has left him with one less mortar on the bottom side. This M22 has had its weapon jam fixed, but the 60mm mortar going to be trying to take out that Jeep supply, which would have been a nice kill and possibly had the potential to blow up the M22 in the process. M1 howitzer still failing to kill the 60mm mortar, but it is allowing the engagement between the airborne rifles and the rifles to continue, especially with this 50 cal coming up to help out. So currently it looks like Protosszocker is kind of probing quite a lot in the mid with his infantry. I'm surprised that he is gaining the infantry advantage at the moment, but with the amount of mortars he has down here, it's no surprise really. But yeah, now with the Bofors here on this bottom side, the P51 Mustang can be used, and it does kill off the 81mm mortar in one run. That was a very, very nice strike. Now that stops the mortar actually from mortaring his Bofors, so that will stay alive. It wasn't actually available to protect his Mustang if an enemy aircraft came in, but he got away with it this time. Now we've moved into Phase B. GMC HMG has come in with some rifle leader down there. What other goodies are we going to see? M4DD on the way to the top side for Theoman. That's going to be looking to help the engagements against these rifles. P47 Thunderbolt out on the side of Protosszocker. It's going to be going for the bombing strike onto the airborne leader. He can see that with the range of Marauders here. If he can find the kill onto the airborne leader, that would be really nice, as it would leave especially this infantry very exposed. Even just forcing them back like this does put him in a pretty bad situation, but running the range of Marauders into those airborne leader does mean that the M22 is going to see that move back, but straight into line of sight of the M1 gun. Now with that revealing itself, the airborne engineers reveal themselves, and they're going to get pinned down almost immediately, and these rifles are primed to cut them off. So Protosszocker slowly but surely making himself ground, which is interesting to see. I really thought with the kill onto the M4DD and the MGMC, especially with 100 income per minute in Phase A, that Theoman would have made more ground than he did. But here we see the GMC getting very aggressive, going to be trying to go for the surrender, I think, onto these rifles, but getting a bit close for comfort there, and the rifle leader dies before it unloads. That is a really, really bad mistake there from Theoman. He had that. If he had been a little less greedy, I feel like he could have just unloaded those rifles a bit sooner, maybe helped pin down the ranger leader a little, and that would have got the job done. However, things are definitely falling in Theoman's favour on the top side, and maybe that's where he was focusing. The two airborne rifles have moved up with the accompaniment of the smoke there, and that has found him a nice salient that cancels out the land that Protosszocker has made towards the mid and bottom side. So there are always plays going on across the entire map. Here, the M3 gun does go down to the rifles, which is a bit unfortunate there for Theoman. Those rifles getting close enough to get the work done, and now the 50 cal is going to try and repay the favour, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, especially with the 60mm mortar coming straight down, although that's not even... That's aiming at where the M3 gun was. Might even be assisting in pinning down the rifles. Yeah, I'm not sure that was the best bet. Either way, this Jeep's coming in with a mortar on the side of Theoman. That's going to be looking to help out on this top side. Look at the amount of M1 guns that Theoman's investing in. He's got 2 on the bottom side, 2 on the top side here. He's got another anti-air, or not anti-air, sorry, howitzer coming in. And he's got the 60mm mortar as well, so huge indeed. Going to be getting the smoke down in front of his 50 cal there. Thunderbolt's going to be coming in with the bombing strike onto the M4. Doesn't quite get the pin. M1 howitzer did finish off the mortar finally. So this M4 and this sort of constructed push that Theoman's trying to make on this top side is starting to pay off. 51% or 52% even territory now in favour of Theoman. With the artillery coming down just after the bombing strike there, the M1 gun on the side of Protosszocker does go down. Airborne rifles still holding strong on this bottom side against this infantry advance of rifles. Oh, now we see a B-26B Marauder coming in. Not entirely convinced that that's worth it. I always find it very confusing that when somebody spends that much on a bomber and then proceeds to use it on a 20-point infantry squad. Like, the beauty of these bombers is that they can pin down such a large area. And for example, if you know this range of mortars here, why would you not focus that instead? That would be a much nicer thing to take care of than an already pinned down rifle squad. So you've got to think about that whenever you're using Air Force, and often I find it puts me off playing with my Air Force, because like often I don't find its value for money, especially when, you know, your objective is on the ground. Like, a lot of people can get carried away with bringing in too many aircraft and then have nothing left on the ground which actually holds the objective, which is pushing the front line forwards. It's all very well getting a lot of kills, but we saw with Eugen versus Herobert, the kills don't always matter. Like, Eugen in his game with the 716th completely ignored the air. He let the Hurricanes run free throughout the entire game. But it didn't matter because he held the ground that he needed for as long as he did. So that's kind of a sort of thing that Theoman needs to respect here. He can't get too carried away, and neither can Protosszocker for that matter, since both have very strong aircraft that they can make use of. But look at all of this howitzer fire coming in. That must be so irritating to play against with Protosszocker. There is an M3 howitzer and 4 M1 howitzers all firing on this location where there's an M1 gun, the Ranger mortar, the Ranger leader and the Ranger support, and it's getting a lot of hits in there, weakening Protossocker's forces. But even with this huge salient on the top side now, still only a 51% territory lead. These rifles are making ground. The Ranger assault here is actually getting very close to this M1 howitzer. There's just no infantry to really cover this mid area at the moment. I think Theoman definitely needs to rectify that. He has some stuff on the way, so that's good to see. There's also a 50 cal joining him on the bottom side to assist with his airborne rifles. So up here we have the M4DD. That's going to help the airborne rifles kill off an infantry squad up here, gain some more ground for Theoman222. Once again, M4 is going to be trying to engage the enemy M4 at some point, or even try and take out this M7. That would be a really nice kill actually for Theoman. But now Protosszocker also investing in howitzers, so we can see a M2A1 howitzer arriving. Thunderbolts coming in on the bottom side. 15 HE power bomb. Going to be trying to take care of this Pathfinder. Takes it down to 2 health. The Theoman can just use that for straight up recon now. Honestly, not entirely sure why he wanted to fall that back. I think people definitely panic a little bit sometimes when their units get pinned. It's not always the best course of action to just click the fall back button, because in that case the Pathfinders would just be invisible again, and he could have just moved them safely to wherever he wanted, since the rifles that were firing at them were already pinned down. So that's always something to consider. By the way, in the mid here, 2 units of airborne rifles coming under a lot of fire. CGMC and the M4DD getting involved. They're going to break these buildings and just force those airborne rifles back. But still a +1 for Theoman, and he's still gaining those points. Now, since we have moved into Phase B, the income difference has swinged in the opposite direction. 120 points now per minute for the 2nd Infantry and 105 for Theoman. So Theoman's only improved his income by 5 over this phase. And that can definitely mean that Protosszocker can put on a lot of pressure, especially with the use of like cheap rifles. But that infantry squad, that leader is just dead. Winters is down, everybody. M2A1 howitzer going to be coming in with the counter battery onto the M3 howitzer. On this bottom side, Protosszocker is actually got to be pretty careful down here. There is a severe lack of infantry right now, and with that rifle squad being surrendered, this one could be surrounded, and that would push territory again back in favour of Theoman. He did lose the ground on the top side due to these 2 rifles coming in, but the M4 should stop them from moving any further forwards. It'll be interesting to see that M4A1 versus M4DD engagement. The M4DD having 10 front armor would say to me that it should win, but the 2-star veterancy from the M4A1 means it is going to hit more often, which means it will force the enemy M4 to fall back quicker. And that could, of course, give it the advantage. Airborne rifles are going to be forced back here under artillery fire. CGMC is getting into position. 50 cal moving across the open at the moment. It's probably going to be spotted. So I think what Protosszocker is waiting for here is for the 50 cal to come into the tree line and then hit it with the CGMC. The other thing that Protosszocker could do is just attack move the way he is and just get into this field and just try and cut off all of these forces. That would be really, really nice for him. Another CGMC on the way. Very expensive to use these as fire support units, but at least they double up for AA in the long run, especially if he is using those Thunderbolt bombers like he has been doing so far. Yeah, that 50 cal unit definitely going to take a lot of damage. P-51 Mustang was coming in with the bombs. I don't think it dropped them though. Gets forced back too soon. This B-26B Marauder, that's going to be bombing out these rifles. We're just pinning them down, not killing them off. P-47 Thunderbolt tried to go for the strafing run there rather than dropping its own bomb. So B-26B there does get away in the end. AA on the side of Theoman, helping that stay alive. But yeah, you can see all of this infantry, without any significant armor, is going to have to be forced back for now. But as long as Theoman sits on a +1, pretty sure he's happy about how he's played so far. Now the Bofors taking fire from artillery. Ranger mortar still alive in the mid here. The amount of fire this Ranger mortar has taken and the fact it's still alive is actually really impressive. Two M2A1 howitzers out of the side of Protosszocker. Both players relying very heavily on their artillery in this game as opposed to their airstrikes. Now I mentioned this before and I'll mention it again. Artillery is very slow, which is why in general the front line isn't shifting very much. But that is a nice kill there from the M3 gun onto some unloaded infantry. CGMC has also been forced back by that. But yeah, getting back to the point, artillery is very slow. So honestly, with like a 101st or even the 2nd Infantry, there is always the opportunity to bring in AA and then focus on your Air Force in order to get units pinned down and then play aggressively. It's much easier to do with the 2nd Infantry because you have the armoured units and fast units like these M15 CGMCs, for example, to push through and take ground once you've pinned things down. But neither player really opting for that option at the moment, just playing it safe. I guess that's the other thing to mention is aircraft can be quite volatile. If you bring in an aircraft for 200 odd points and it gets shot down immediately, then you kind of put yourself in a really bad position. So that can happen, and that's why it's a lot more risky than bringing in, say, artillery. P-47 Thunderbolt is going to be coming in and pinning down those airborne rifles as they try and push forwards, but that was more of a defensive act than offensive. Both are able to pin these rifles on the bottom side, but the CGMC still doing work here, still cutting off the advance that Theoman was making. Theoman has instead kind of opted to play around this top side. M22 actually manages to take out that mortar finally, but with the M1 gun showing up, that might be a dead M22 in the mid there. M22 just about managing to back off. Really nice micro of this M22 by Theoman. This M4 still dealing with the rifles on the top side. You can see it's used up all of its 50 cal ammunition in those engagements. Bofors has been brought in from Theoman up here, and also this M10 destroyer. Can Theoman see the M4A1? No, he cannot. I wonder if he knows it's there, because that would be an interesting engagement to watch when it occurs. And these Pathfinders, low health but still being used as recon. Same deal down here. You can see the Pathfinders did return to the same location. Bofors might eventually kill these rifles if the airborne rifles don't beat it to it, but the CGMC did take out the 50 cal in the end. B-26B Marauder, oh, that's more like it. Oh, saying that, it kind of missed. Oh, maybe not. Still managed to pin down all of the rifles there, but there's nothing really to capitalize on that, and no lethality in those bombs. Gabby does come in the meantime as well and get that kill, so that bomber really didn't pay itself off. But with the death of the rifles down here, you can see another salient has been made from Theoman, and he's just been doing that throughout the entire game so far, just making these small salients that's giving him a +1, and he is constantly extending his lead, which is going to make it harder the longer this game goes on for Protosszocker to come back. And a really nice kill there from the M10, takes out the M7 Priest. Fantastic stuff. These Ranger Marauders are actually in a really nice position here. Not sure they're going to find any kills. Eventually something's going to come down this road and spot it. He will either kill whatever comes down there, or he'll be spotted after a miss and die because of it. M10 has now come down on this bottom side, and these 3-star M10s, they don't miss much, but they certainly take a while to aim. So if Protosszocker invests in a Sherman for this bottom side, he might be able to find an easy kill there, especially with the assistance of his Air Force. Like this P-47 Thunderbolt there coming in with the bomb definitely helps pin that M10 a little. And with the assistance of like an M4 as well, that could easily be a kill. So that's something that I would expect to see out of Protosszocker. The M4s, I think it's definitely important to invest in them. I'm surprised to see more armor out of the side of Theoman than I have out of Protosszocker. Protosszocker invested so much in artillery right now. He's got 3 M2A1 howitzers and he's got a 107 mortar. He had all the mortars at the start. It was 2 81mm mortars and two or even 3 60mm Ranger mortars. I mean, there's so much artillery coming in this game that it's just making it too slow. And finally, we see an M10 come out of Protosszocker. Now, another amusing thing about this matchup is that both divisions do have very similar units, in a sense that they both have M4s, they both have 2-star M10s that can be made 3-star with command. So we'll have to see if like an M10 goes up against another M10. That might be quite amusing to watch. And now this GMC, it is going to be fast moving straight past these Ranger Marauders. I wonder if the Ranger Marauders will find the kill there. As soon as they reveal themselves, the Airborne Rifles will open up. So we'll have to wait and see. But these Airborne Rifles down here, they're making some ground. M5 gun might stop that. Pathfinders did try and get aggressive and got killed off in the open. Oh, here goes the Ranger Marauders. Theoman does spot it. Okay, so the GMC does go down, but the glider leader survives. And I guess that's okay. That's acceptable, considering that was a nice ambush. Really good kill on the top side, though. M4A1 comes up trumps against the M4DD. Very nice kill there for Protosszocker. If he can use that to take out this M10 now, that's going to be putting him in a really good position. However, he might need to be careful of these M3 and M1 howitzers. They can definitely be moved into these tree lines and help out if this M4A1 decides to get aggressive there. Now the artillery is coming down on top of that M10, and I really like that. Trying to pin down the M10, and then he can move the M4A1 aggressively around the corner to try and get the kill. But Theoman, what's he going to do here? It looked almost as if he was going to try and sneak around himself, but that would be a very bad idea with an M10. M10s don't really work well at close range. We did lose the M10 on the bottom side for Theoman. Looks like that went down eventually. This M4A1 found and killed off the 50 cal up here eventually. P47 Thunderbolt coming in with the bomb. Is that going to be going for the M10? Oh, it doesn't quite get the pin. The M4A1's going to be going for it anyway. Won't be in line of sight of either the M1 howitzer or the M3 howitzer. Mustang does come in, but it's not enough to stop that M4A1 from surrendering the M10. Okay, interesting engagement. We're back to 50-50 once again. There is a lot of units on the field. Look at that, boys. That is rifles all across the front. We've got airborne rifles all across the front on the other side. And things are definitely getting difficult to push for both players. It's really reliant on all this artillery and counter-artillery. And my god, that must be hard to manage. B-26B Marauder does drop its bombs. I think a couple of those are going to land on the M3 gun though. Oh, bit of a miscalculation there. Loses M3 gun, doesn't even kill the rifles. Not a good bombing strike at all. Those B-26Bs have really been missing the mark for Theoman. Like the way he's been trying to use them as sort of bombers for pinning down singular infantry units is just not great. Like the Thunderbolts on the side of Protosszocker work much better for that. Like we've seen like the 15 HE power bombs come off those Thunderbolts and just pin and do quite a lot of damage to the rifles. And it works against the 101st because their infantry is quite expensive. It's also good because the Thunderbolt can act as a fighter as well. So regardless, it's still a useful aircraft. Whereas that B-26B, if it comes in and its bombing strike doesn't really do too much, they're just a massive waste of points, which could have been better spent elsewhere. So we're now seeing the M10 come in on the bottom side for Protosszocker. The M10 on the top side has gone for Theoman now, and Protosszocker has his there. So in terms of armor advantage, it's definitely in favour of Protosszocker right now, but another B-26B goes down. Did that even kill off any of these rifles? I'm not sure it did. Like it maybe killed off like a few in each squad, but that's just not a good investment of points. Like I'm all for airstrikes, but they gotta hit the right targets. And a unit having to go down the mid there as well. This artillery has actually really started to do a lot of work here. from Protosszocker, but can he bring it back in time? There's 7 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock. Theoman is sitting at 753 points to Protosszoker's 102. Protosszocker really needs to get a move on. He has a huge advantage. He knows he's taken out both of the M10s. He's taken out the M4DD on the top side. I think the only thing that Theoman would have left in terms of tanks right now is one M22, since he's destroyed the one that was further down, and also one more M4DD, I think, because you can get 2 on a card. So knowing that, this would be the time to really get aggressive with these M4A1s, since there isn't really too much to stop him. Like, yes, the M1 howitzer and M3 howitzer can kind of direct fire his M4A1 and kill it that way, but if he's got the M2A1s, there's no reason why those shouldn't be pinned down when he tries to advance. The only thing I'm seeing that he's lacking up here is recon. Theoman is not, however, and well, his Pathfinders are in a decent spot to try and get a Gammon bomb on target, but since they've missed, they might just go down before they can reload, and they certainly will, especially as the M4A1 turns its hull, gets all of its machine guns on target. That was job done. M5 gun going to be helping engage on the bottom side with the M10. There's finally a push coming in down here as well, with the CGMC arriving behind P51 or P47 Thunderbolt coming in. Wow, I got really confused there, but that's going to be trying to bomb out some of this infantry. Didn't really get a successful bombing strike there. This P51 Mustang takes a lot of fire from the P47s, but might get away, honestly, since it is fast enough to do so. Rifles are being pinned. Can Gabby get on the tail of the P51? If he can, it's dead. Wow, just about gets out in time. So yeah, Theoman's bombing strikes have been disappointing throughout this game. That's for sure. Like I mentioned before, I'm all for bringing in lots of aircraft, but make sure you use them properly. And here I think Protosszocker has definitely been doing a lot better. However, I wasn't particularly keen on that P47 Thunderbolt strike. So now it's just a matter of getting in the recon, finding these M3 and M1 howitzers, pushing through the tree lines. You just got to make a concerted push somewhere, because at the moment it just feels like all of his units are really spread out, not concentrated, and that's going to make it incredibly hard for Protosszocker to find enough ground in time in order to bring this back. He needs a +2. We can see that currently with 5 minutes remaining it will go to a draw. But I mean, Airborne rifles moving down to this bottom side. M4A1's trying to push in the mid. Bit of a suicidal place to push if you ask me. Especially with all of these tree lines. Like, there is a lot of airborne rifles here. Glider Leader even has a bazooka. The M4A1 will not be long for this world if it gets any further or any closer to these infantry. You can see that the CGMC does go down on the side of Theoman. P47 Thunderbolt going to be coming in with the 15HE power. Rocket's going to be trying to get the Glider Leader out of the way so the M4A1 can continue its advance. So that's a strong play. Like, these are the plays that you need to make. Like, only bomb stuff if you know it's going to push units out the way in order for you to make ground, or it's going to pin down units that you can then surrender. There's no point in just bombing stuff for the sake of bombing stuff. And just trying to get the kill onto them, because bombs in general aren't actually that lethal. Rockets are quite lethal, but in that case you can even see that only took it down to 5 health there. And well, Theoman's coming up here with another 50 cal on the top side. Rifle's trying to stop that from making too much ground, but M4DD did find the kill onto the M4 here as it pushed forwards. I assume that was what got the kill. And that's definitely swung things around on that top side. No recon to see what was coming has really bit Protosszocker pretty hard. And a +1 once again going in favour of Theoman. And he can't have that for much longer. M1 gun is going to be defending on this bottom side. If he can get the one-shot kill onto the CGMC, then that's job done. Manages to get the engine destroyer, which is more than good enough to get the pin in the second shot. Well, gets the kill in the second shot, so that'll do too. But yeah, as long as Theoman can delay this push out of Protosszocker, it's going to be his victory and his game to lose. 3 minutes left on the clock. Just needs to delay the mid push here. Protosszocker, why would you push here rather than on the top side? Like, I saw this M4A1 and I assumed it would accompany the M4A1 on the top side through after especially the M10 got surrendered up here, but that was not the case. And yeah, now it's pushing in the mid and it is making ground, but he's having to be careful with every move he makes because there's so many ways he could be attacked in the mid. Now, the great thing about pushing on the bottom or the top side of the map in any game of Steel Division is that you know that there's nothing, like, you have extremities, you have the edge of the map that you can play around. Whereas if you push in the mid, you can be attacked from the top side, you can be attacked from the bottom side and the front of your forces, and that can really make it difficult to succeed in those areas. So the M10 here, that's going to be engaging this M1 gun, actually manages to find the shot onto the M4DD. Thunderbolt and Gabby there going to be coming in to hit this M1 gun. M4DD does pick up the kill onto the anti-air, but is this going to be enough? I don't think it is. Protosszocker is not finding that +1, and just like the last game, it's going to be incredibly close. Protosszocker now ticking the +1, but it's not going to be enough to even get a draw. And even if it was a draw at this point, Theoman would still come up the winner, because he would have more points due to the rules of the tournament. So yeah, I think Protosszocker just didn't concentrate his forces enough in the end here, and it really has just slowed him down a treat. Like, look at this M1 gun. It's just at every moment this M4A1 needs to be careful moving forwards, and if he's not, and if he lapses his concentration for 1 minute, it's going to take a bazooka in the side. Like, even the glider leader here, look, it's going to get into range. He's getting overzealous here. The glider leader don't actually fire their Zuka, so he gets away with that. That's incredible. Does manage to find this breach in the front line finally, but yeah, only due to that bazooka not firing. I mean, not sure quite what happened there, but it's not going to matter either way. 35 seconds left on the clock. Even a +2, +3, like, every second that ticks away takes away the chances of Protosszoker's victory. And look at these points coming in on the top side here. 3 M4DDs. Where did all these points come from? I feel like Protosszocker just kind of dropped the ball on the concentrated push, which is definitely something that the 2nd Infantry can do very well. They can use their fire support to really support their own units, even without the use of the Air Force. So that's it. I mean, that's game. And you can see at the end, Protosszocker had a lot of ground, but it wasn't done quick enough, and it really, really cost him this one. And with that, Theoman is going to win after the full 40 minutes, pushing Protosszocker down to the lower bracket. And yeah, crazy, crazy stuff. 2,590 kills to 2,130 losses in favour of Protosszocker, but Theoman winning the game in the end. Really not a fan of Theoman's bombing strikes. The amount of B-26Bs, well, I think he lost 2 of them after sort of subpar bombing strikes, and then, like, I think he had a 3rd available, but it just really wasn't hitting the mark. Jump into the kills and see what happened here. So these are the kills of the 2nd Infantry versus the 101st. This M1 gun picked off the M22 in the mid. You can see the kills on the side of the 2nd Infantry weren't very spectacular early on, but moving into the later phases, Gabby took down 2 B-26B Marauders. We see the M4A1 made a lot of ground on that top side. M5 gun managed to pick off the M10, I think that was on the bottom. This M4A1 also doing very well, but he just didn't capitalise on how many kills these M4A1s were getting. And it was, yeah, it must have been frustrating for him at the time, probably not noticing that he wasn't concentrating his forces like that and just didn't make the ground in time. But on the side of Theoman, look at this M22. What a hero he was, taking out 2 M4DDs and an M15 CGMC. I mean, it doesn't really get much better than that for an M22, and I'm honestly surprised that Theoman didn't make more ground himself earlier on, because once you see the M4DD go down in the mid there, I think you could generally get quite aggressive with the infantry and your tanks. Like, you can use the M22 as close range fire support, and with the M1 howitzers that he had on the field, it was very easy to pin down any, like, AT guns he came up against, for example. As long as he had pathfinders in front of the rest of his troops, finding those units and targets for him, there was no reason he couldn't push early on. But it really became like a Phase B arty-fest, both sides really investing in artillery, and that slowed the game down a treat. So that's really the story of the game, and I don't think I can see a single kill here from a B-26B. I'm pretty sure he brought in 3 of them, which is a lot of points. It's like over 700 points. So there we go. Either way, that is it. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.